Didi Verg, and I'm your host today for Hypnothoughts Live, and we're going to be talking hypnosis with Joe Moon. So welcome, Joe, to the show.
Didi, it's great to see you again.
I know. Joe and I go way back. I love Joe.
I love you too.
So you know what? We can love each other, but nobody knows anything about you. So let me tell you a little bit about Joe Moon, because she's really quite astonishing. So Joe Moon is a medical support clinical hypnotherapist and sports hypnotist. Before Joe became a hypnotist, she had a career in sales where she both traveled and met with some of the world's most prestigious athletes. And it was through meeting those elite athletes that she had the privilege of observing a winning attitude in action. So after becoming a medical hypnotist, Joe then went on to study hypnosis for sports performance enhancement with Bob Reese, who is formerly the trainer for both the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets.
That's correct.
Yep. So currently, Joe maintains a full-time private practice in Springfield, Missouri. Correct, Joe?
Correct. Yes.
So again, Joe, you and I know each other, and I happen to know that your first experience of hypnosis occurred in your childhood after your mother and your brother got hypnosis from the local dermatologist for severe plantar warts, which all dropped off a week after the session. So that's quite a foray into hypnosis.
It's kind of the way I became aware of it at first. And golly, way back in the mid-1960s, because of my mother's experience, she went to New York City and took one of those 2-day weekend, learn a little bit about hypnosis courses.
Right.
She never did anything with it, but she often talked about it. And it just got my curiosity up. And bingo, later on in life, here I am as a hypnotist.
Right. Now, I know how you got into hypnotist wasn't so pleasant. So do you want to tell everybody a little bit about what initially sort of catapulted you into hypnosis?
Well, sure. As I had said, I had a long-term interest in doing hypnosis, Didi.
Mm-hmm.
But what really catalyzed everything was back in 2006, I was diagnosed with cancer. And actually, it was this time of year in 2006, I spent about a 7-week visit to the hospital while undergoing radiation treatments. And I was not certain I was going to be around very long. The radiation treatments were at the cancer center, which was quite a distance across the parking lot from where the hospital room was. And after my treatments, I would go to the community medical library, which was in the cancer building, and just kind of sit and try to recoup enough energy to go back over to the hospital to my room. And every day the librarian would just bring a few books, drop them in front of me, and one day she brought me this one book, which was on using guided imagery for cancer issues. I wrapped my head around the chapter on doing hypnosis for radiation treatments, started doing it every day, and within about a week and a half, my goodness, my attitude turned around, feelings changed, I got healthier more quickly, the fatigue went away, it was like a life-changing thing for me. The doctors were really surprised at my progress. And you know, it was funny, yesterday, someone was asking me about those radiation treatments. They said, well, what was the big burn field that you experienced? And I said, well, there was no burn field because I was creating coolness. So even though I'm very fair, my skin didn't burn, which they thought was absolutely astonishing. And so I had a strong belief right there.
The power of the mind is so amazing, because I remember you sharing with me that up until then you were burning. But after you started
I had little blisters going on, but then everything just kind of cooled down and cleared on up again.
And yes. I just want to mention to everybody that Joe made history when she became the first certified medical support clinical hypnotist in the state of Missouri. So
Yes, I was the first one certified in the state, yes.
So Joe, at this year's Hypnothoughts, you have 2 presentations, one on autogenic training and the other on Let's Talk About Sports, where you'll be sharing with how to get an athlete to go from a slump into peak performance. So let's talk about that for a moment and how hypnosis can help most athletes.
Well, first of all, most people don't know that all of our top athletes are using mental skills training of some type. You know, it's wonderful to train the body, but in order to really get beyond doubt, they need to train their minds also. You know, greats like Tiger Woods when he was a young man, Greg Louganis, the great diver, Mike Tyson, the boxer, you know, they all carried along with them their hypnotists. So they all had this really peak concept. They were able to shuffle off defeats very quickly. So instead of allowing those to interfere throughout their entire performance, they would just move beyond and go right on ahead to succeed.
And that's amazing. And two things we talked about in person is, which I found amazing, because when you think about this, they get injured. And then after an athlete gets injured, then there's some kind of hesitation. So they're limited by that. And I'm going to say it in an unconscious way, because everybody's protecting themselves from getting hurt. So share with us, you know, how you help an athlete get over an injury like that. Because I remember you talking about a basketball player, and she had broke her ankle, and she was always hesitated before stepping, which is not good. When that ball comes your way, you got to take it and run.
Well, exactly. You know, she just didn't trust her leg any longer, even though her doctor had told her it had healed strongly and she was very safe and secure to run and to both jump. So we, you know, what do? We pull out our little NLP techniques. We did the rewind,
right?
You know, from before, when she did trust her body, and to understand and know that her body can do the same thing all over again. So, you know, we kind of cleared out the self-doubt that came from the pain that she experienced, because obviously nobody wants to go back into a pain experience ever again.
And all this is unconscious, by the way. So
it is. It's
people don't realize that they're limited in that way. So what other really astounding things have you seen in working with athletes?
Oh, gracious, let me think here. Well, just last week I finished working with a boxer, and as we were working together, it's a young man. He was about 30 years old. He's strong and wiry, had a lot of self-doubt, but turns out, he was also smoking. How do you go to peak performance when you can't breathe as well as you need to?
And a little internal conflict between being an athlete and a smoker, no doubt.
Well, exactly. So we changed around his whole identity of himself, from being, you know, the cool guy who was smoking to a true athlete's mindset, you know, healthy in mind and body. And he came into my office last week on Monday. We were supposed to have a session, and he said, "No, I don't want to do a session. I just have to tell you that I feel so absolutely fabulous. I'm breathing better. I've changed around my diet. I feel so much stronger. Actually, I'm going to spend this time, I'm going to go over to the gym and I'm going to knock some people out." So he was really, really pumped. You know, so very often with athletes, it's not always just around their performance. Sometimes it's around other lifestyle things that they don't really understand how strong the impact is on them until they move those things out of their life.
So I've read that, I think it was Kevin McBride, he fought Mike Tyson, because you just reminded me of this. He was a boxer, and he used a hypnotist, so I've read, to actually imagine the punches coming at him slower so that he could choose the best response.
Yes, yeah, that's one thing that's kind of fun to do with athletes, is to change their perception of time and speed. If they need to, you know, see things coming faster or performing faster, while outside things are slowing down. Really, it's great for baseball players. You know, when that ball is coming at them and their pitcher is throwing at, say, 90 or 95 miles an hour, having all the time to plan, if you're the hitter, seeing that ball coming slow motion so that you know exactly the moment to swing, how to contact the ball, and having the control to send that ball where you know you're going to be able to get around the bases really easily. So yeah, we do that.
I find that absolutely amazing. And I'm a hypnotist. So how we can work with time distortion. So autogenic training, share with everybody a little bit about what that is and what it can be used for.
Oh, autogenic training is something that I am really very, very excited about. I went back not so long ago and looked through my early hypnosis training manuals that I got in school. And there was a quarter of a page on autogenic training. And now that I look back after having studied it for quite a long time, not particularly correctly done. So it was something that somebody must have passed along, and you know the old game of telephone and how things kind of get distorted as you pass things along that way. But what happened is I was reading a book on sports hypnosis, and it was about the way the Soviets used to train their athletes, and they mentioned using autogenic training. And that really spurred me because it kind of came between two different things that I was very interested in, the medical support hypnosis and the sports. So I started looking into it a whole lot further. And really the history of autogenic training goes back to the early 1900s. There's a long history of different people who began their interest in hypnosis, who taught whom, and some of these just amazing brain scientists, very early on, neuroscientists, who started to find that they could use these techniques. Now, the autogenic training, and we're going to go into this, you know, for a full hour at Hypnothoughts, generally is about a 6-step training for the very basic formula. We work with the muscles in the body, we work with the vascular system, the heart, the lungs, heartbeat, breathing, the diaphragm, digestive, and then we go up into the head. I've had a couple clients who, along the way, have said this was the best thing they've ever learned. Wow. But the other thing that's happened is that as you get into the advanced part of the training, the hypnotherapist can then take the basic formulas and add on other suggestions, I'll say that really help the whole mind-body connection for people to heal. Even certain phrases like, I am at peace, or my heartbeat is steady and rhythmic. Things like my stomach is peaceful and calm. It works wonderfully for people who are on weight management programs. Yeah. Because where's their attention? It's always on their stomach, and usually they're feeding that stomach because that stomach's never feeling peaceful and calm. So we're going to spend a lot of time looking at the way you can advance those types of very targeted suggestions using autogenics. But then as autogenics advances, it turns into what I'm beginning to realize now is probably a very early form of mindfulness meditation, to be more mindful about the colors that you might see when you have your eyes closed, just letting colors happen, or really focusing and trying to create a color to happen, focusing on people. So there's a whole variety of different levels that are associated with this. And people who engage in using autogenics can really, again, change the whole concept of their mind connecting to their body, and very, very useful for health and healing.
So as a result of working with people with autogenic training, what is one of the most astounding things you've ever seen?
Well, I guess probably one of the most astounding ones is a gentleman, a very wealthy gentleman, as a matter of fact, who had an absolutely tremendous fear of heights, to the point where he didn't even want to drive in the state of Colorado, because Colorado has a lot of ups and downs, and the sides of the roads might drop down hundreds and hundreds of feet. So he was very, very nervous there. He had to do a lot of international travel, and just being in the airplanes would just make him violently ill. We did go through the entire training, and the guy now is just about as peaceful and calm, feels like he can go anywhere, can do anything. So he's been very, very happy with having learned to do this. And autogenic means you are just simply generating these sensations and feelings yourself. Now, personally, let me relate a story there. About 1.5 years ago, I had to do some medical imaging, and they had me kind of twisted up like a pretzel in the machine. And of course, the lovely technician, as they're starting to roll me into the machine, goes, "Oh, gee, I hope you're not claustrophobic." Yeah, what is that?
Nice suggestion.
Oh, yeah, you're going to put the claustrophobia idea right in my head, and
right,
you're sending me
if
into
I
this
wasn't
very,
before,
very narrow, confined space.
If I wasn't before, I certainly am now.
That's right, that's right. So I simply said, that's okay, don't worry, I'm not even going to be here, I'm leaving my body, I'm taking off, you do what you need to do, I'm going to be inside my head doing something else. So, of course, I took myself to my most favorite place, and in my most favorite place, I started with the very first autogenic training, and it was just focusing like one phrase for each breath that I took. And I went completely through the training number 1, then I went on to number 2, breath by breath, number 3, number 4, number 5, and I got partially into number 6, and the technician said, "We're done now." So an hour had passed without me having any realization that there was any pain from being in such a strange position, being confined within a medical imaging machine. And I can remember saying, "Well, you may be finished, but I'm not. I'm going to go back in my head. I have a couple things to finish. You just do your paperwork, and I'll get up and off your table in a couple minutes when I'm all done."
That's amazing.
But it was wonderful for having known the whole thing mentally myself, because it made the whole procedure very, very comfortable.
Well, good for you. So for those of you who want to check out Jo at this year's Hypnothoughts, go to www.htlive.net, where she'll be teaching 2 workshops: Play Big, Let's Talk About Sports, and Advanced Autogenic Training. So Jo, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I look forward to meeting with you this year at Hypnothoughts. So
great to see you, and I can't wait to meet you back in person again.
Great. Well, you have a fantastic day. Bye-bye,
Thanks
Jo.
a lot. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.